Welcome to the Winning with Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. Email has the highest ROI of all marketing channels. Are you maximizing its potential and growing your list? Drive conversions and create more connections with Seguno, the top-rated email marketing platform built exclusively for Shopify. Seguno is offering Winning with Shopify listeners an extended free trial, plus a complimentary strategy session with an email marketing expert. Visit seguno.com/winningwithshopify to claim your offer. Now, over to your host, Nick Truman.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. If it's your first time here, what an absolute pleasure it is for me to be talking to you today and having a very special guest I'm going to introduce in a second. If you've been tuning in for a while, welcome to the beginning of our new series. We're talking about email this month. So it is August, and most of the world is absolutely cooking in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment, but not the UK. It's weirdly cold. We've all got jumpers on. It's so bizarre at the moment, but we're going to be talking about email this month. And so, as a lot of our regular listeners will know, I do a lot of work to bring in new customers and acquire new customers in our agency. So we're going to be talking about email and how do you get more from those guys to make our work even more effective, to get more money through your store, etc., etc., etc. So you can think about it this way. You've acquired some new customers, but how are you now going to engage those customers, keep them engaged, and get them to buy more from you? Those are the things to focus on as we go through the next few episodes. And this will be going on for the whole of August as well. My very special guest today, his name is Chris. He's the co-founder of a company called Seguno, who are also sponsoring this month. Chris, it's a pleasure to have you with us, and welcome to the show.
Nick, so happy to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity. So I didn't realize it was cold over there. That's, quite opposite of what it is over here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's warm enough that I've literally just turned the aircon off in the office, but it is cold. At nighttime it's like 18 degrees. Normally we can't sleep this time of year. It's really bizarre for Brits, but it's really cold. All the heat is in Europe, which is quite bizarre. So it's all good fun. So Chris, we ask all our guests when we first start. So why don't you give us a quick overview to yourself, a little bit about the business, how you got into it, and then we'll carry on from there.
Yeah, sure. But first, I'd love to throw a few questions your way. I mean, I'm sure the audience doesn't get to hear about you enough, right? So
Indeed.
A few questions that we always ask new members of the team, or band as we call it here. One, what's your kind of go-to junk food?
Go-to junk food?
If an actor was to play you in a movie, who would you want it to be?
Yep.
And three, if you were an animal, what animal would you want to be?
These questions are awesome, and anyone who's been listening for a while will know this never happens. This is quite fun. Junk food, I hate to say it. I don't even know if, I'm assuming you guys have these in the US, but my wife hates it. I have this craving twice a year for a doner kebab. Like lamb doner meat, maybe with chips, salad, loads of garlic sauce on top.
Sounds delicious.
It's not delicious at all. It's absolutely horrendous. But I just get these cravings for one. I have one, and then I'm fine.
It doesn't
for
sound
about
like
6
junk
months.
food, but
No, well, it is. They pretty much blend everything in the lamb. And bearing in mind, I'm almost vegan now. I still eat a bit of meat. I'm almost vegan, but I just get these cravings from time to time. Actor. I've been on a YouTube channel. I won't say who, because all our listeners will go and check it out. I've been on a friend of mine's YouTube channel who's quite a big influencer on YouTube. He travels the world. And everyone always comments asking if my name is Russell Tovey, who's a British actor. So it'd probably be Russell Tovey. I've even been stopped in the street asking if I am Russell Tovey, and I sort of say I'm absolutely flattered. He's also 15 years older than me, so I don't know what that says about my face. But and then in terms of an animal, I mean, I absolutely love cats. The ability to just, like, everyone bows around you, which is awesome. You can sleep all day, do what you want, and you're fed on demand. What's not to love about being a cat? And you can explore at your own reign as well, not unlike a dog and other domestic animals. So there we go.
some great answers. Love it.
Good stuff.
Well, on the junk food side for me, there's this purple bag of Doritos. It's like a sweet, spicy chili. Can't get enough of those. And so there's a UK guy on our team, and you'll get to chat with him later. But it's funny, when he thinks about junk food, he thinks about like McDonald's and things, which, you know, over here in the US, it's more thinking about like, you know, snacks and that stuff.
Nice. And your colleague is also called Chris, for anyone listening.
He is, indeed.
At the time of recording this, we are trying to get Chris to come into the office to do a face-to-face as well, which we do from time to time. So
I think he'll quite enjoy it. Yeah, he's got a great story.
Nice.
For an actor, Jason Bateman, if you're familiar.
I don't know Jason.
So
Which might be a cardinal sin, but I don't know who
No,
Jason is.
no. Ozark, Arrested Development.
I know Ozark. Yeah.
So some of those shows. But anyway, he's got a real good dry sense of humor, which I tend to employ myself. So, your listeners are in for a treat. And then animal, I would choose a tiger. So another cat. So I love the color orange, and they're just majestic, badass animals. So.
They are pretty badass. I love the fact that tigers as well, they pretty much live on their own, and they just like, they're very territorial, and then suddenly two tigers make another tiger, and then they never talk again, and it's just like off again. They're just fascinating creatures, how you can survive like that. But nice. Well, thank you so much for the intro. That was unexpected and awesome at the same time. So why don't you tell us about Seguno then? Let's talk about email, and if we can reference any of those three things from either side throughout the conversation.
Well, we leverage the color orange, so that's our brand color. So there you go. That's where that comes from. But yeah, so I've been in the e-commerce marketing game for over a dozen years, and half of that's been with Seguno. And prior to that, I was with a company called Bronto. And so Bronto was really the first email marketing platform that focused on commerce back in like '05. And so, that was an incredible company. I joined around number 99. We grew to over 300, and they exited later to NetSuite. And so it was an incredible ride there. Got to work with some huge brands and really see, sophisticated strategies that these huge retailers were leveraging and building products for them. And one of the things that my team did there was also building the integrations with the commerce platforms. So Magento, Demandware, NetSuite, Shopify. And so it was that experience that kind of gave me the insight as to which platform I wanted to focus on when I left and started Seguno, and that's Shopify. And in my opinion, Shopify is the only platform that truly acts like a platform. And they really enable us to deliver the experience that we want for our customers, that just seamless experience. And so, fast forward, started Seguno with my longtime friend and co-founder, Mark. And we've been at it for over 6 years. And so we're an email marketing platform built exclusively for Shopify. And so our whole platform is embedded inside Shopify. The integration just goes far deeper. So whether you're pulling in blog posts, products, discounts, actually building, leveraging Seguno inside of Shopify automations, segmentation, all that great stuff, it just goes deeper. And the ease of use is through the roof. And aside from that, the customer service is really what kind of brings it home for people. And we go above and beyond for folks, and we just truly care about these merchants that we're serving. And just love working with Shopify merchants.
Amazing. I made some notes about that as well. And I think when you mentioned working with some of the other platforms, something that's in the planning at the moment, and unfortunately for most of you guys listening, most of you in the US, it won't be available to you, I'm afraid. It's going to be in the UK. We are working with Shopify at the moment to try and do an event later in the year with one of our biggest Shopify Plus stores we work with, where we're going to talk specifically about migrations. So we did their migration. Right. By the time of the event, it will probably be 4 years since we migrated them off Hybris, which is a horrible platform. Oh, yeah. Anyone from Hybris listening, feel free to email me. I'm happy to have that argument. But yeah, Hybris was they couldn't click a button and build a page. And so I think as you say, like the way you guys have brought that ease of automation into your platform as well, I think it's awesome. I guess the first big question, which I'm going to kind of half answer for you, if that's all right, and then get your thoughts as well, because I want to add something on this that I think is quite key. Is why another email automation platform? Why another email platform? I guess the question. But the caveat I want to add in is actually that like Shopify and MailChimp is a good example. They fell out. Klaviyo is mostly Shopify based, but it also works with other platforms. So actually having something just off the shelf that's like, we are the Shopify email platform, it's all we do, it's all we focus on, I guess means that if something changes on Shopify, just as one example of execution here, is something changes on Shopify, you guys are on it because it's the only thing you need to be on. Whereas Klaviyo are like, oh, that's not a problem on Magento. And it's like, but we're not on Magento, we're your customer, you need to fix it, you need to make it work. So why another email platform in your view as well?
Well, I think you just answered it, Nick. So,
okay.
No, I mean that's exactly it. We saw that as an opportunity. Bronto I felt was really the first, as I said, Klaviyo is kind of that next evolution where they're integrating more deeply with some of the platforms and kind of more focused on some of those use cases.
Yeah.
But we're really the third evolution where we're actually embedded inside the platform and we focus only on Shopify. So that means our integration goes deeper, our support goes deeper. We're happy to, we know Shopify, so we don't say, oh, sorry, that's not our problem. We're here to help merchants and answer questions, even if it's outside of our world. And yeah, you're exactly right. Anytime there's a new change in Shopify, we're on it 100%. We often, get a chance to work with them on some beta programs and things to actually launch new features with them. And so that's just a huge differentiator for us. And yeah, exactly. You nailed it.
Good. I mean, it sounds good, and I think the other challenge as well, I think often with like third-party platforms is you talk about, we use the word integration a lot. I guess that doesn't really apply to you because it's not like your system, Shopify system. There's Shopify system and your system works on it and only on it, which also means you can probably get a ton of cool stuff. So I guess if someone's looking at all the platforms, and just for everyone listening, this is not a sales pitch for Seguno. I want to try and find out from Chris kind of what some of the USPs are, and then we'll dive down that route and work out why they've been invented and therefore actually what you guys could do to change your email platform. But when they're looking at all the platforms, what's the differentiator for you guys? Like, what's the thing that you guys are like, this is where we're strongest? Like, this is how we make people more money. This is how we engage their customers more.
Yeah, so I mean the Shopify integration is the big one, right? And so it enables you to leverage all your data that's inside of Shopify. Everything is pulled fresh when we need it. We don't have like an extra copy of your data that you have to worry about syncing. Yeah. You can click a button to say, I want to give everyone on this newsletter a unique discount code. You just check a box and, we handle all that stuff. So it's about taking these sophisticated strategies and boiling it down so that it's effortless, where you can just do things like check a box. So yeah, the integration with Shopify, the support, were certainly more affordable than some of the other options out there, because that's kind of a core belief of ours. I think people have been made to believe that marketing is super hard, it's expensive. I have to accept this complicated tool and use that because all the big brands are using it. So that's just kind of the way people think it is, but it's not, and we're here to change that narrative.
Yeah. I think in terms of just the big brands using stuff, we have it a lot where, obviously we work in Google advertising, and we have a lot of clients who are small Shopify stores. They're trying to scale, they're trying to grow. They might be spending 50, 100K a month now, $50,000, that kind of thing. And they'll say, well, how much are the big boys spending? We need to be spending that. Or how do they do their marketing? How do they do attribution? We need to be doing that as well. Sorry, the Winning with Shopify Fly is back. It attacks me probably every other episode. We have the Winning with Shopify Fly. So if I'm waving my arms around, if you're watching on YouTube, then that is why. But with the big brands, I think it's always dangerous to say like, well, the big brands are doing this. Gymshark's doing this, so we should copy. I think actually the best thing you can do is not do that, do something else, because you're more nimble 100%. Than Gymshark are. And if you're copying people, and this is always the thing I think when we're looking at SEO and you're looking at who's number one, how's their site set up, and I guess it's the same with email as well. If you just look at you sign up to all the newsletters of all your competitors, which is a really good thing to do, if you're just copying them, you're never going to get ahead because you're only doing what they're already doing. You need to do something different. So I guess we'll come on to content in a minute, but I guess a really good place to start, Chris, is if someone's just using the default Shopify, abandoned basket and stuff, they've just got their first 1,000 sales in now. I want to kind of scale this thing. I want to start emailing people. I know email's a good channel. We're not using it. Where's the best place for them to start? What's the first thing they should look at?
Yeah, I mean, automations are kind of crucial, right? Because you can set something up once and it can be driving you revenue while you sleep. So if you don't have your welcome built out, I would start there. So anytime you're paying for that traffic to hit your site and you don't have a nice pop-up experience to be capturing that percentage of people's emails so you can nurture them and retarget them, then you're just wasting money on the ads front, right? Only a small percentage are going to convert that first time. So you need to be capturing them and nurturing them. So the pop-up, the welcome series, then you mentioned abandoned basket, so that's obviously an important one. Building these things out into a nice strong series, leveraging unique discount codes to protect your margins if you're using discounts. And then there's plenty of other automations too, but those are the most important ones to get started with. And then, then it's starting to start talking to people, right? So sending out newsletters on a regular basis and making sure that those people are hearing from you. And that's what they want. They signed up because they want to hear from you. I hear so many smaller merchants that are afraid to start sending because they say, I don't want to bombard these people, but they want to hear from you. So it's really important.
Yeah. I think the other thing I find a lot of smaller merchants are afraid to do as well is actually ask customers what they think. And I think the irony is when you're small and you're starting out, you need that data more than ever. You don't know who these people are. Why did you come to my site? Why did you purchase from me? What was it about my products that attracted you? Did you look at any other sites? Like, all these things are super important.
Exactly.
Did you buy on your
customer
first
development,
visit?
right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I guess one way of looking at it as well, if you're not doing email, and I say this to newer clients where, I gave you the analogy before we hit record actually of like, we see so often like 40% of revenues come from PPC, 40% of revenues come from SEO. We've done our job really well. It's all good. And 20 might be like direct on top or something. But there's no email. And it's like every single order is someone new or someone remembering you. And we could be so much smarter than that. So if you're not getting those second orders already, don't be afraid. There's nothing to lose because they're not going to come back and buy. And every day you've not emailed them is another day they've forgotten more and more and more about you, to the point where when you do eventually email them, you get like a massive unsubscribe rate, loads of emails bounce because people have changed their email addresses, or people just ignore them going, who are these guys? Never even heard of them. And you could be wearing their clothes at that moment for all you know. I've done that before as well and seen an email and gone like, who are these guys? And then later on I'm like washing my hands after going to the loo and I see in the mirror the logo and I'm like, I'm literally wearing the brand. Like, I should remember that, but I didn't, and that's bad from them, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, email should be driving, a quarter to a third or more of your revenue too. So,
yeah, absolutely. I love that welcome series. I think it's so important, and I love the way you put it as well about ads. And it's not just advertising, it's anyone. So it could be you telling friends and friends going on somebody's website. It could be repeat customers that aren't ready to make that second purchase yet or that next purchase. Landing on the site and seeing something, like, as you say, a little pop-up that says, like, join our newsletter. What are some of the incentives you want to put on there rather than just going, join our newsletter? And it's like, well, why? There's no why, so I'm not going to do it. What are some of the things people can put on there to try and break down that barrier?
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of a standard that people use is like a 10% code, but, I think whenever you can, it's best to stand out and not just be the standard. The standard works great, and that's, kind of why it's more standard. But it's not just all about discounts too. Like, you got to leverage your brand inside of the pop-up, whether if you have a funnier brand or, a nice tone of voice, that make sure you're weaving that into the copy to capture people's attention. Maybe it's a free gift or some other type of offer that you can give them. But yeah, it depends partly on your brand and what's most important to you. But yeah, just giving them a little something can go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the ones I saw recently that was absolutely amazing, and I did mention this on another podcast a few weeks ago, so apologies if you guys have heard this before. One that popped up that on a website I was on recently, I can't remember the name of the site, but I was partly because I'd landed on the wrong site, basically, and I shouldn't have been there, and it wasn't relevant to me. But from a marketing point of view, I thought it was amazing. And what it was, a pop-up came up, and it said, speak to a doctor now. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? You've literally got this army of doctors like on the keyboards ready to... And it was a skincare product. So you could talk to like a dermatologist, doctor about your skin, and you literally go on video and like zoom in and look at different parts of your face. And they would then say, okay, cool, look, I've got a load of screenshots, do you mind me taking some screenshots? I've got some screenshots of your face, and they've got a bit of software that does that as you go in. I did it just to see what would happen. And the first thing I said to this lady that appeared, who was the dermatologist, I said, do you get many guys coming on here and doing this? And she said, yeah, loads. About 45% of the people who come on here are guys. And I was quite amazed. I thought, we don't normally take care of ourselves. This is quite cool. So anyway, so they took those screenshots. She found bits in my skin and said, right, give me a week and I will send you I need your email address. I will send you an email with your prescription of the skincare product you need. It's from us, but she did say it's not cheap, and it wasn't cheap. But bear in mind, I didn't mean to land on that website. I just saw the marketing of like speak to a doctor now. I was like, all right, challenge accepted. Yeah. But in terms of a hook, we can't all do that. I get that. But I love what you were saying about standing out. That was the first one that popped to my mind. I think that the 10% works, but it's so dry and boring. And because everybody does it. And I think the other thing as well is when we've actually looked at the numbers of our clients that do that, here's a 10, 15% off discount code. So many people, they sign up to the email and then don't even use the code. And they might spend like £300 or £400 or dollars, and they don't even use the code. And you're like, okay, so we still hooked them in, so we need a hook. But if they're not even using the discount, we should at least A/B test a different offer that might be like book a place in our free, with a free personal shopper, and you can go on a video call around your house, and they'll recommend products that we would recommend you buy to, bring your home to life, that kind of thing as well. Like, put something in it. It doesn't always have to be a video and a real human at the other end, but I think those incentives.
That's a pretty incredible example. If you can staff that, that'd be cool. But yeah, it's about being different, and that doesn't mean offering a higher discount, right? It's about what's unique to your brand, and that's why people are there, right? So yeah.
I guess another one you could do if it was a coffee subscription. Bear in mind, there's a coffee box sitting on my desk. A coffee subscription, you could say subscribe and get a free coffee machine. And the T's and C's might say you don't get it until your 8th month subscription or something. And again, this example I used with a client the other day, and I think I mentioned in the podcast. But I think those subscriptions are, having a subscription but rewarding people when they reach a certain point is quite cool. But again, you've got to have, as we say, you've got to have the tech to do the automation flows to actually make all of that work. I guess to turn the question on its head a little bit, how much of a negative is it for customers when the emails don't work? When you find yourself on 6 different flows at the same time, or the email content's irrelevant? How do you first of all notice and pick that up, and B, what do you obviously need to do about it?
Yeah, I mean, brands should be paying attention to their metrics, right? So if you're seeing a high unsubscribe rate or complaint rate, I mean, complaint rate is a little bit more like you probably shouldn't be emailing them in the first place, so maybe you're doing something wrong on the capture front. But but if you're getting tons of unsubscribes, right. If you've waited too long, exactly. But if you're checking your metrics and your opens and clicks are going way down, and you're not getting sales, and people are unsubscribing, then clearly you've got a problem. And so, I mean, what you mentioned in terms of automations, that can be trickier for some people to diagnose, right? So if you do have a ton of automations going, it's important to pay attention to who's coming in when and how those all work together. And leveraging exclusion lists is a great way, or tags on the customer to exclude them from certain automations, or even excluding them from your newsletters while they're in certain automations, right? So
very good idea.
The welcome series, perfect example. If you've got a nice tailored welcome series, and you want to send people down that path, because that you've got that set kind of for conversion, and you don't want to interrupt that with a random newsletter that they might get. So yeah, it's important to not overlap too much, but yeah, monitor your metrics, and then it's a matter of trying to find what's wrong and testing and switching it up, because if it's going south, then something's not working.
Yeah, absolutely. And I almost came onto it a minute ago, but I'll come back to it now because we didn't quite talk about it. But the point you made about how many people actually convert from ads or any kind of new channel coming in, actually getting something from other people afterwards, I think is really, really key. I guess last question on welcome, and then we'll talk about kind of the ongoing long-term engagement with customers. But last thing on welcome then is at what point do you bring that pop-up into play? Is it immediate? Is it just almost like a banner kind of thing? Bear in mind, a lot of people don't land on the homepage these days. Google Shopping lands on a product. Facebook will use your entire URL strings and your entire sitemap to put you wherever they think is relevant using the new campaign types. How do you know when to bring it up, when to push it? Is it when people go for the back button? Do you just test and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want a multi pop-up strategy, right? So maybe you want something on your homepage, and you can kind of look at site bounce times as maybe a good place to start for testing purposes. So if you know people are spending 3 minutes on your site on average, then don't pop it up after 5 seconds. But if you see people are bouncing, in 10 seconds, then yeah, maybe you need to get it up there in 5 seconds to try to capture some people. Exit intent is obviously a great one for those that are leaving, and then having different experiences on different places, like on a product page, right? So maybe you've got some people that are landing on your product page, and then you've got a certain pop-up that's specific to that product. It could be, I mean, if you've got the support to handle it, that would be an awesome part, like you were mentioning, like let's take a look at this together, or what questions do you have about this? Depending on the price tag of the item, maybe there's different things that you need to kind of help them hurdles get over, right? So if it's a higher consideration point, they're not going to necessarily buy right away. So you need to really kind of calm their fears, whether it's shipping or whether it's return policies, different things that you could kind of bring up and say, hey, don't worry, like we got a 100-day trial on this item, so feel free to give it a shot. That's a good opportunity on a product page. So yeah, it depends on kind of your homepage, whether you want it just timed or maybe you want it scroll based, or and then you want multiple ones. You want to lead people to different places on the site. You want to capture them before they leave. You can have some that's specific to the cart page too, right? So if someone's got stuff in their cart and they're bouncing, try to catch them then, and maybe that's a time where you want to offer a discount or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's really about a multi pop-up strategy and being specific to where they're at in their journey.
I really like that, and I like the point as well about intent. So I think if somebody lands like from Google Shopping on a product page, intent's high now. Like they knew the price, they knew how many reviews it's got, they knew what the product looks like, they know what it's called, they've seen all of that on Google pre-click. So actually now we just need to get them through the cart, and actually hitting them with a big welcome banner may not be the right thing to do. But if you set like a 2-minute or 1-minute timer on it, again, check the data, I think it starts to make my job more effective by doing stuff like that in terms of we've sent the traffic in, how do we get more from those guys? But let's talk about, the biggest thing that I want to ask about today, and the biggest thing I want to talk about today is lifetime value. That's the biggest thing that frustrates me. We've mentioned it a couple of times. How do you, as a kind of very blanket strategic start, how do you approach this thing about lifetime value? You're only getting one order from each customer. It's costing loads of money from Meta or Facebook or Google or something. Meta and Facebook, the same thing. But also from Google. Where do you start with lifetime value from an email perspective? Like, what's the first thing you should be doing to try and get people to buy more?
So if we're talking, that second purchase, right, then you got to start doing segmentation. So you need to start kind of pulling out those people that haven't purchased and versus those people that have, and starting to kind of treat them differently. You can also kind of segment by what categories they're purchasing in, or have specific post-purchase, automations that are based on exactly what they purchased. So, let's say you buy, some of that skincare stuff you were talking about, right? So we know you bought this skincare item, and now afterward, we're going to send you some information about that specific product. Make sure you have a great experience with it. Like that, making sure someone has a great experience with the purchase number one is a huge part of getting them to make a second purchase. So it's not just about trying to sell them other things, it's ensuring they have a wonderful experience with purchase one first and foremost. So yeah, you can send them some tips on a particular product, get them excited before it arrives. Follow up with them. How was that product? Do you have any questions? How did it go? We'd love to hear from you. And then you can start kind of putting them down to get related products, or if it's an item that can be replenished, making sure that you're hitting them up around that time when it may be running out. So yeah, you want to start looking at your segments, people that haven't purchased versus people that have. And then there's other segments like for VIPs and people that are purchasing a lot that you want to also treat differently. But those kind of RFM segments are really important. And then making sure they have a great experience, and then following up in a meaningful, consistent way to share more about what you have to offer.
Yeah. I think the other thing as well, which you kind of touched on, and it's ringing around my head, so let's talk about this for a sec as well, is when you're doing that engagement. I love all the examples you're giving, before the product arrives, once it's arrived, when it's ready for replenishment as well. If you buy a pair of trainers, how long are they going to last? How many pairs of trainers does everybody have? Do some customer surveys, find these things out, and then go, okay, I buy a pair of trainers every probably 3 months, so we're going to email you every 3 months, whereas the next person says once a year. I make my trainers last 3 or 4 years, so you're going to get an email at 9-10 months where we'll just kind of say, hey, come check in and see what we're doing in our charity foundation at the moment. Come and see these new products we're developing. Oh, hey, we've got a Kickstarter. Do you want one?
Yep.
And it's like you kind of build those series. But I guess the biggest thing here that is so important, and I guess they wouldn't be able to do my bit or your bit, Chris, without this, is tone of voice, brand personality, is it? What you're talking about at the moment is the brand having an ongoing conversation with somebody in the same way you go into the same cafe and get the same coffee every day, or you go to the same takeaway. You asked about junk food earlier. You go to the same takeaway every however often. Some of us more often than others. But you go to you have that personable relationship. This is the point where you need to be building that, isn't it? You bought your first product, you're over the first hurdle, but if you don't buy again, I almost say to brands that you need to look at that as a commercial problem. That's a problem that always needs to be fixed.
Yep.
We're never going to have enough people doing the second purchase, so we always need more. But how do you go about that brand tone of voice? Like, is it something you just build for email? Should it be different to the website and kind of front end branding? Should you make it completely consistent?
Yeah, consistent 100% of the way. And I know that's a harder thing for merchants that are just kind of getting started. Developing that brand is not an easy thing, especially when you're trying to stand out and be unique, right? But yeah, once you really kind of have a sense for who you are and who you're trying to serve and how your products make them happy or better their life, then that's what you want to start weaving in your USPs, right? What are the values that I provide to my shoppers? Why are they here? And really kind of speaking to them about those things and helping them understand, how you can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to bring it back to automation here. So and we'll talk about content in a minute. I keep saying we're going to talk about content. We will in a second. But bringing it back to automation now. So you're running that engagement piece. There's a slightly loaded question. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this one. Is there a danger with automation that it becomes too much about the numbers and, more people clicked on the blue button than the red button, to use a Matrix reference. But yeah, more people did this than this, or is there a danger of that? And how do you mitigate that danger and keep it focused on okay, we asked our customers this, we asked them X, we're providing Y, and here's Z to match both?
Yeah, I mean, so you're talking about it just becoming more impersonal? Is that kind of more?
Yes, it just becoming a machine of just how do we get more clicks, more opens, as opposed to actually telling a story and doing true engagement.
Yeah, I think the story is the most important thing, right? And it's about meeting people where they are in their journey. So if they haven't purchased yet, then you really need to help them understand your brand and your USPs. If they have purchased yet, it's making sure they have a wonderful experience and then reminding them about new things that they might be interested in. But if you're talking about I'm not in favor of just trying to build all the automations. I think you want to really be smart and kind of layer them one at a time and make sure that your story is consistent and you're hitting people at those different points in the buyer life cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to audit those on a regular basis too. And so yeah, it's not something that you can just necessarily turn on and forget about. You need to revisit things and make sure they're still working and they're meaningful to the people receiving it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that as well about reviewing it, because I think there's always a danger of going, no, that email flow works really well. I mean, we get it a lot on Google Ads campaigns, and clients have it as well, where they say, our welcome series has stopped working. 3 months ago it worked, and it's just kind of, it's never if it's an overnight stop, I always say, something's broken. Something's broken. Find the thing that's broken. But if it's a gradual, it's getting worse and worse and worse, the sooner you jump on that, the sooner you can fix it, and the sooner you can say, right, it's coming down. Let's talk to our customers. Let's do some focus groups. Let's look at the numbers. And I was saying shying away from just it being a digital exercise. Look at the numbers and see what's going on. But let's bring it into content then. I guess one of the biggest challenges our listeners get, and we had this brilliant guest, she was on again a few weeks ago, called Janice, from a company called Look Fabulous Forever. It's a makeup brand for the over 60s. And we had a really cool conversation recently about TikTok, but we also spoke about email right at the start of the year. We spoke about, I think we're talking about just general channel marketing and how they retain customers, but the topic of email came up, and they send an email every day. They get a 50% open rate on that email. Wow. And I asked her the same question I want to ask you as well, Chris, is, I'll modify it slightly because you're not the one sending emails to merchant customers, but I asked her, how do you come up with 365 stories per year? And how do you avoid just even one in the entire year that gets unsubscribe rates going through the roof? So I guess similar question for you then is, how do you come up with enough stories? I know we talk about like the brand stories. Are there any obvious things to do? Is there a way to tell a story over several emails? Is there a way to find out the frequency of emails you need to be sending? Like, how should brands be approaching this, and how should they be looking at the numbers to make decisions on this as well?
Yeah, so I mean, an email a day with like a different story, that's a very intense thing that most brands probably aren't capable of kind of investing in. So kudos to her. Yeah, I think, again, kind of from the layering perspective, I think, you want to start slow and then increase things over time and then, you can monitor your metrics to make sure you haven't gone too far in terms of sending too much, right? So if people start unsubscribing a lot, then back off on your cadence a little bit. Yeah. But in terms of like what to send, we've got a great course on Seguno.com that has tons of resources for this, like 15 newsletter ideas that you can kind of pull from. Would encourage you to check out. But yeah, I think it's about sending things that are different, not sending the same thing every time. And you want to have a mix of, things that are focused on selling, and then you really want to have a good portion of that be not selling, where it's just nurturing, keeping in touch, sharing more about your brand, perhaps trying to build a community if that works for your brand. So those are important things to weave in. I think some different ideas. So here's just one like small little tip, right? So if you want to kind of take one idea and turn it into the next 2 months of emails, you can do like a collection overview, right? So you say, hey, here's an email, and here's our main collections. We've got 8 collections here of different products, and for the next 8 weeks, we're going to dive into each one of these collections and kind of share more. So it's a great way to kind of start with a high-level email, and then the next week you take one particular collection, and then you break that down and say, here are top products within this collection. So that's something that you can kind of take that's relatively simple and easy to implement, that can take one idea and span a couple of months. But yeah, it's not easy coming up with content, and that's one of the things that we hear from a ton of our merchants. So we really try to provide a ton of resources on our website for them, and we're always here to help as well.
Absolutely. And I think the only other idea I would add to that which a lot of our clients have found really useful actually is, and I mentioned it I think at least twice in this episode already, is talk to your customers. Find out where they're at and what they're doing. We have a client who, at least one of their emails per month, they actually feature a customer. So they've developed this amazing walking stick that folds up, and it now means that people with certain conditions can actually go hiking using these walking sticks, because the bottom of the feet are quite adjustable and stuff.
Nice.
They're called Flexi Foot, if anyone wants to go and check those guys out. I don't think they're on Shopify, and we don't work with them anymore, but when we were working with them, it's an email a month, and they would actually feature like who's climbed a mountain recently, or who's done something amazing. And they literally found a guy who he had no mobility in one of his ankles at all, and he literally did an Ironman, which I found absolutely phenomenal.
That's inspirational.
So exactly, but I think exactly as you're saying is like they found one idea and turned that into like, that's one email a month now. That's one of your weeks if you're sending weekly ones, or if you're sending one every single week, that's 48 out of your 52. Yep. No, wait, the maths don't work there at all. One a month is 12. There we go. It's 12 of your year already sorted. And I think whether it's actually featuring a customer or finding out what a customer's dealing with, I think like you were saying earlier about finding out like use cases, what did you use this product for? How did it work for you? I think, another good idea, I guess, is you could send a survey out and then publish different bits of the survey over the next 6 weeks saying, you told us that you guys actually use this product for 6 weeks. So we've now created a product that's slightly bigger, so it'll last a bit longer. Created one a bit smaller so you can have it delivered every month, and we now offer a 6-week renewal rather than just weekly or monthly. So we've listened to you, we've made a change, here it is. That's a good thing for people to hear about. So then
That's huge. Yeah.
do you know what? I might tell them actually my frequency is not 6 weeks, it's 3. And that's really annoying. And see if they can now add a custom and I can just have it ordered every 3 weeks rather than over ordering, pausing it, over ordering. And again, it's asking customers, how do you use our system, our subscription? Like, what does it actually do for you?
Yeah, that customer feedback is so crucial. And when you can weave that actually into the story, that's even more powerful. You know, if you're doing a lot on social or on your blog, like that's great content to be pulling out that you can kind of have, you know, be part of that non-sales content. And, you know, also like if you've got a newsletter that just crushed one year, like you can reuse some things too, right? So if your list has grown a ton over the last year, a lot of those people haven't seen your old newsletters, so you can kind of take some old ones that worked well, you know, rejigger them a little bit, and give yourself a leg up on the content creation.
I think that's an excellent idea. And the other thing you could do is you don't even need to wait a year, or if it goes up, do you? You could just create a segmentation of like, these people have been subscribed for a year, these ones haven't, so these ones haven't seen it. So actually, let's do something there. Cool. Let's finish on one of my favorite topics. We don't do meta advertising on Facebook and Instagram, but massive caveat here is a lot of agencies we work with do, a lot of clients we work with do. And one of the things we're seeing more and more at the moment is like this kind of almost like this funnel flow approach to stuff. There's nothing new about it. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the kind of funnel process and how it works with Seguno, where you run an ad on Facebook. People see the ad, they click on the ad and go, cool, I'm interested. It could be something like you might sell sports clothing and it's a challenge going, are you going to do 100 days of this? You know, you're going to sign up, do this with us. You see that, you click on it, you sign up. And now the email flow automation series then starts. How many of your customers are doing that sort of thing? Like, do you find that still works these days? Do you find it doesn't work? Do you think does it always lead to a purchase? Do you find that you end up with this list of customers but not customers? They've not purchased but they are on the list. You know, what's your experience with that?
I mean, as long as they're still engaging, then that's not a bad thing. You know, they're still opening, then you can kind of keep them around, right? And maybe they'll eventually convert. But no, we've seen you know, some customers do really well in terms of like those longer nurturing series. You know, Chris will kind of talk about this with his, but he has like a 3-month series that he does for folks to really kind of, you know, how to use their product. You know, we see some people that you know, there's one company that does this. They sell yarn, and so they do like these knit along groups. You know, from when you think about like community, like they're leveraging email as a way to kind of bring folks together to essentially work on the same project together at the same time. And you know, their email series is kind of bringing that content, the educational content, and that community together. And so that's worked really well. So, you know, I think those longer series can work quite well. It's as long as you've got the engaging content, so people are sticking with it, then that's incredible. Yeah,
nice. Well, look, we'll come into land here. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on, Chris. And the most important question to ask you, and this will be available in almost every episode as well, guys. Don't feel like you need to action immediately if you've not heard enough yet. The next 4 episodes will almost be like an email series in themselves, in podcast form. But Chris, people are listening. You're saying some good stuff. They want to check you guys out. They want to give it a go. They want to talk to you. How do they reach out? What's the best way to get in touch?
Sure. Well, yeah, Seguno.com. You can learn more about us, and feel free to reach out. You know, you can hit us up in chat or email, help@seguno.com. We're always here to help. Even if you're not using Seguno, we honestly love to hear from people and help them with their program. We even do this one little thing for feedback where you can send an email to critique@seguno.com, and we'll just give you feedback on your email, regardless of if you're using us or not. So yeah, check out Seguno.com. Feel free to schedule a demo if you want to learn more. But we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's been a pleasure today. The Winning with Shopify Fly is back. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Nick, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And for everybody listening, as I say, we're doing a whole month on email. This is only week 1. So if you're listening to this in the first week or week and a half of August, please go to winningwithshopify.com, send us some questions. As Chris says, we're going to have his other colleague called Chris on in a couple of weeks' time as well, so we can hit Chris with some other questions. If you've got any questions about email, things are going wrong, feel free to reach out to either Chris or myself. We might even forward some of your requests to Chris and get him to answer them because he is the expert on this. Or we'll ask other Chris on the podcast. So make sure you stay tuned. If you've not already hit the subscribe button, leave us a little review. 5 stars is the correct answer. And we look forward to having you all tuning in again next Friday. So thanks for tuning in and hope to have you again with us soon.